Choosing the right CRM can be a challenge. And speaking as someone who's led their fair share of CRM transitions, I can tell you that it's not something that you want to have to do more than you absolutely have to. But how do you know which CRM is the right one for your business so you only have to do it once? Hey everyone, I'm Ian Campbell. I'm CEO of Mission Suite. Before we jump into today's video, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so that you're notified every time that we post new videos. So most of my videos focus in around sales and networking and referrals, but it's been brought to my attention that I rarely talk directly about CRMs, which is ironic given what I do for a living. More specifically, I don't talk about how to figure out which CRM is going to work best for your business. Now, obviously, I never talk about CRM or even mention the term without throwing Mission Suite into the mix. And I'm sure you, as you've heard me kind of mention CRMs, you've noticed that's the case too. But the reason that I do that is because I really do believe that if you're exploring CRM options, then Mission Suite should be a part of that exploration. But why? Why do I think that it's something that's worth looking at? And what do I tell others to look at when they're evaluating their options? Now, I promise this is not going to be a 10-minute video about Mission Suite. I'm not going to be pitching Mission Suite by any means. Rather, I'm going to do a deep dive into the different things that I tell people to focus on when they're making their decisions on which CRM to partner with for their business. Regardless of whether they go with Mission Suite or something else, there are specific things that I like to make sure that people are at least looking at to consider. Now, remember, there's no one-size-fits-all answer to this question of which CRM is going to work, right? No matter how much money the big guys spend to make you think that there is, it's just not there. And there are going to be times when your needs are going to push you in one direction or the other. And that's okay. My goal today isn't to convince you that you need to work with Mission Suite or to not work with another platform or to push you in any direction specifically. My goal here is simply to arm you with the right decision-making criteria, some guidelines, if you will, and to give you some perspective on how to collect the right information to make the best decision for your business. So let's jump in. So first of all, and this probably isn't a big surprise to anybody, you need to look at how the system works from a contact management perspective. No matter what else is on your list, if the system doesn't manage your information the way that you need it to, well, it's going to be a problem to get it to work correctly. So there are some key things that I always like to make sure that I'm looking at or that my clients are looking at as they're kind of reviewing this part of the decisions here. So first of all, are you working from the company level or from the contact level? I know it's kind of a strange question, but it is a pretty important one because if you need to prioritize working at the company level, then working with a system that's contact focused can be challenging because all of the information kind of just feels a little bit backwards. It feels like you're never actually looking at all of the information that you need because you're focused so heavily on one specific contact. Typically, I see this a lot from people who employ a more targeted account sales approach, account-based marketing, if you will. You may have heard that term recently. They often start with a list of companies, and then as they do their research, they fill in key information that they need about the company, and the decision makers are often just a part of the information that's collected, right? They're not specific targets in and of themselves. Now, obviously that changes, but that's a different conversation altogether. On the flip side of that, if you're like most people that I talk to, and you're working from a contact perspective, you're just out there looking for people to do business with, regardless of whether they're on a targeted list, right? And if that's the case, then working with an account or a company-based CRM can be really cumbersome because oftentimes it ends up requiring some duplicate entry of information, and it kind of just gets a little frustrating. Next, something else to consider is, does the platform that you're looking at allow for you to easily customize your contact records? Can you do things like adding as many custom fields as you want to? Are you limited in any regard in that? One of the really challenging things that I see time and again with CRM clients is that what your CRM looks like when you launch is almost never what you want it to look like once you've been using it for 6 months or so, right? There's a lot of things that you learn during that initial time that you realize, oh, I need this or I need that, or this would be more effective if it were laid out differently. And if you need to upgrade to some upper tier in order to add more contacts or more user fields, or maybe pay for someone to help you make changes to the system, then that can start to add up pretty quickly. So something else to consider. And then lastly, as far as how the system works, are you able to easily pull all of your information out of the system if you decide to change to a different platform. If you want to export things, is it easy to do it? I always used to think that this was pretty much a no-brainer, but recently I've had some experiences where that's not so much the case. Believe it or not, there are some CRM platforms out there that will allow you to export contact data, but not export past activity history to go along with it. There are some platforms that will allow you to export contact information and activity history, but if you have deals or opportunities that you're working on, well, you're kind of up a creek, so to speak, on that, right? You can't export that. And of course, there are even CRMs out there that actually make you upgrade just to export some of this stuff. You don't want to be locked into one CRM, especially if you're at a point where it just no longer serves your needs. And if you don't want to lose all that historical information, you need to make sure that this is something that you're looking at. And ultimately, it's always going to be better to work with a company that doesn't try to hold you and hold your data hostage. Native functionality is another key factor to consider in your decision to move forward with a CRM or not, of course. These days, there's no shortage of integration tools out there, and I'm a huge fan of those things. Things like Zapier make it easy to connect your CRM and a whole bunch of other tools to a whole bunch of other platforms. They're awesome. I love them. The challenge that you're always going to run into, though, is that the information that gets passed back and forth between those tools is probably going to be limited. If you only need contact information sent to your CRM from, say, your email marketing platform, then this might be okay. But if you want read history, click-throughs, and other specific data that's going to show that contact's intent on anything specific, then you better make sure that the system that you're using has that capability built into it, because I don't know that there are many systems that allow for that detailed information to pass back and forth. Let's take Salesforce as an example, right? Everyone talks about them like they're a massive platform with huge functionality. And they are a massive platform, right? And they've done very well in changing the industry from where it was back in the late 90s. The reality, though, is that Salesforce doesn't really do much beyond storing your contacts. They just have been around long enough that everyone has developed a connection to them so that the information is sent back and forth, right? I mean, everybody integrates with Salesforce, and that's how they have this kind of we can do anything approach. And as long as no one changes the password, that might work for you, right? But on the other hand, there are systems out there, systems like Mission Suite or HubSpot and Fusionsoft and some other ones out there too, that actually have these tools developed natively inside of the system so that you don't have to wonder if the connection is working correctly. It's just there. And all the information is with the contact record when you go to it. If you don't think it's ever going to matter to you, that you'll never want to do any sort of email campaigning or never need to automate your marketing or sales information or never need to build out landing pages, and I mean, I could go on like this for a while, then you may not need anything more than a solid contact storage system, and that's okay, right? If your needs are the important things here. So if you think that that's going to be you, then you might be fine with something that just stores your contacts. But if you think that there's ever going to be a chance that you will want to do some of those things, you're going to at least want to take some time to consider this as you make your decision. Usability is another big decision-making factor that you're going to need to account for when choosing a CRM. This may seem obvious, but you'd be surprised. I don't care if you have a team of 30 people or if it's just you using this CRM. If it doesn't work for you and it's cumbersome to use, it's cumbersome to navigate and weird to add information, then you're not going to use it and your team's not going to use it. So don't waste time and don't waste money on a platform that you have any questions about when it comes to usability. If it doesn't feel right, then walk away, because it's just going to cause you more and more frustration, and you're going to end up walking away from it eventually just more frustrated and having wasted a bunch of money that you wish that you could get back. Most, if not all, CRM platforms have some way to test the usability and get into the system to explore it and get a feel for how the different features work. So take advantage of that. For example, I don't know about the other systems, but Mission Suite doesn't have a free trial, but we give you access to a public demo account that lets you get in and explore an actual live account with actual functionality and the whole 9 yards. Some other systems do allow you to set up a free trial account to test with and independently, but whatever the avenue that you're offered, take it. Try it out. Make sure that it feels like a good fit, because it's hugely important to make sure that you are going to want to actually use this and that your team is going to want to use this. And one last note here that I'll mention on usability. Keep in mind that if you're moving away from a different CRM system, that the user experience is going to feel foreign to you. and it could make you question the usability. So if you're in that situation, write out a list of key functions that you want to make sure that you know how to do, and then get on the phone with an account rep, with your salesperson, with somebody with that CRM, and find out how to actually do those things, right? And make sure that you're the one doing the driving on this. You don't want to be watching someone else execute on these tasks. You need to make sure that you know how to do it personally. Pricing is kind of another obvious one, and it's something that everyone asks about, but I'm going to go beyond simply, the dollar cost of this. When I talk about pricing, what I'm telling you to look at is actually their pricing model, because there are two different pricing models that I've seen for CRMs more often than not: user-based pricing model and data-based pricing model. So I've talked about this and written about this a lot in the past because I think it is a really important thing to focus on, because user-based platforms are the ones that everyone is familiar with, right? Basically, it means that I pay a set amount of money for each user seat or license that I need. So if I have 10 people, I'm paying for 10 individual licenses. And if the cost per user is $100, then I'm paying $1,000 for my entire team to have access to the system. This model has been around forever, and it's the way that a lot of CRMs price their software. Things like Salesforce, Pipedrive, etc. Most of them are using some sort of user-based pricing model. It's been around since Microsoft started with Word and Excel and whatnot. Everything is priced per seat, if you will. But on the other side of that, something that's emerged more recently as I'll call it an up-and-coming model still, but that's the database model. Right? In this database model, it looks at the total number of contacts in your system, and it bills you based on that instead of the number of users that you have. Mission Suite uses this model, so I'll use our pricing just as an example. If you have 10,000 contacts or less, then you're coming in at $300 a month, irrespective of the number of users accessing your system. So if those contacts are spread across the same team of 10 people as in the example that I used in the user-based pricing, then you'll end up saving a lot of money that way. Now, obviously, like everything, right, there can be challenges with this model as well. I've spoken to some clients who actually have a small team, but a massive number of contacts. And when that's the case, typically it just doesn't make financial sense to go that way. I talked to one person that had, I think, 3 people and 4 million contacts. And so Salesforce was the perfect option for them because, again, their team was small enough. It didn't cost them a lot of money, but they were able to keep all those people in that system. So last point that I'll make on the pricing model here is to beware of the hybrid model. There are some platforms out there that do bill based on the number of contacts that are in your system and the number of users in your account. Or maybe they'll give you a certain number of users for a base price and then extra users cost more. And these types of things really can rack up the cost of your system. And so you want to just kind of be aware of that when you see these options and take them into account, right? Do the calculations, figure out exactly what the real cost of this is going to be for you. Now I've saved the best for last because this is probably the most important aspect of this, and that's the training and support offering. It doesn't matter how good of a team you have. Someone's going to have questions about how to use the system. Whether it's you trying to figure out your setup, an assistant trying to figure out why they don't have access yet, or a salesperson wondering why their email didn't go out, you don't want to find yourself in a position where you have questions and then have to spend an hour and a half looking for the answer in some community forum. Make sure that the platform that you're reviewing has training and support options that work for you and that can actually provide you answers. Make sure that they have solid resources to help your users get trained on the ins and outs of the system, at least the parts that they're going to need to be using, right? You want to make sure that whatever it is, it's something that works and plays well for you. Training and support is typically the number one complaint that shows up in all industry surveys in the CRM world, and a lot of time it's the reason that most people abandon their CRMs. This is something that you should be scrutinizing pretty carefully because it really does make a huge difference in how the system is used, how effectively the system is used, and how well it actually helps you grow your business. Listen, at the end of the day, you have to go with what's going to work best for you. As you look at all these different decision-making criteria that I just kind of talked through, it's important to remember that ultimately this decision has to serve you and it has to serve your business. So don't just pick the industry standard for your industry and go with it, because You're not your industry. You're one business inside of that industry, and your needs are always going to be different from your peers. Take all of these decision-making criteria into account and figure out for yourself how to weigh them, right? Maybe you're going to need to pay more for some functionality that you want, or maybe you actually do prefer the user experience of separate platforms for your email marketing and your CRM. There are so many different options out there, but you're the only one that can actually make this decision here. And I hope that I've given you some clear guidelines to help you use in your decision-making process, but at the end of the day, it's all going to come down to you. I really hope you got something out of this video. If you did, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, maybe give it a share so that other people can see it too. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so that you're notified every time that we post new videos. And while you're at it, check out the videos that are on your screen, and we will see you next time around. Cheers.